Welcome to today's session, Tertiary Sources of Information. Information is the most valuable resource. It is created in various forms and come from virtually anywhere. Once information needs are identified, information sources that will be used need to be selected. It is important to select sources relevant to the needs of the information. In order to retrieve information, it is important to know where it came from and how it is organized in the fields being searched. An information source is a source of information for somebody. It is anything that might inform a person about something or provide knowledge about it. Information sources may be observations, people, speeches, documents, pictures, organizations, websites, etc. They are generally categorized as primary, secondary and tertiary depending on their originality and their proximity to the source of origin. Tertiary sources of information. The tertiary sources of information are last to appear and mostly do not contain subject knowledge. It is designed to provide information about information and so acts as a guide to the primary and secondary sources of information. Tertiary sources consist of information which is a distillation and collection of primary and secondary sources. The main function of tertiary sources is to aid the user in using primary and secondary sources. Generally, tertiary sources are not considered to be acceptable material on which academic research can be based. They are usually not credited to a particular author. They are intended only to provide an overview of what the topics include, its basic terminology, and often references for further reading. Some reference materials and textbooks are considered tertiary sources when their chief purpose is to list, summarize, or simply repackage ideas or other information. Examples of tertiary sources of information include bibliography of bibliographies, abstracts and indexes, list of research in progress, directories, encyclopedias, and guides. In a nutshell, tertiary sources are works which list primary and secondary sources of information in a specific subject area, works which index, organize and compile citations to and show secondary and sometimes primary sources of information. Materials in which the information from secondary sources have been reformatted and condensed to put it into a convenient, easy to read form. Encyclopedias. An encyclopedia is a type of reference work or compendium holding a comprehensive summary of information from either all branches of knowledge or a particular branch of knowledge. Encyclopedias are divided into articles or entries which are usually accessed alphabetically by article name. These entries are longer and more detailed than those in most dictionaries. Generally speaking, unlike dictionary entries which focus on linguistic information about words, encyclopedia articles focus on factual information to cover the thing or concept for which the article name stands. Encyclopedias have existed for around 2000 years. The oldest still in existence, Naturalis Historia, which was written in AD 77. The modern encyclopedia evolved out of dictionaries around the 17th century. Historically, some encyclopedias were contained in one volume, whereas others, such as the Encyclopedia Britannica, became huge multi-volume works. Some modern encyclopedias, such as Wikipedia, are electronic and often freely available. Four major elements define an encyclopedia are its subject matter, its scope, its method of organization, and its method of production. Encyclopedias can be general, containing articles on topics in every field, such as the Encyclopedia Britannica. General encyclopedias often contain guides on how to do a variety of things, as well as embedded dictionaries and gazettes. There are also encyclopedias that cover a wide variety of topics, but from a particular culture, ethnic or national perspective, such as the Great Soviet Encyclopedia. Projects such as Encarta and Wikipedia are examples of new forms of the encyclopedia as information retrieval becomes simpler. The method of production for an encyclopedia historically has been supported in both for-profit and non-profit contexts. The Great Soviet Encyclopedia mentioned above was entirely state-sponsored, while the Britannica was supported as a for-profit institution. By comparison, Wikipedia is supported by volunteers contributing in a non-profit environment under the organization of the Wikipedia Foundation. Let us now move on to directories. Directories are another group of ready reference source of information. They are published in larger number that one can find them in an average library. A directory helps in finding out the addresses or telephone number of an individual or a firm, the full name of an individual, a firm or an organization, a description of a particular manufacturer's product or a service, limited but up-to-date biographical information of an individual, historical and current data about an institution, a firm or a political group, date for commercial use and random or selective sampling in a social or commercial survey. Generally, directories, being simple, are easy to use because they are not only simple, but the scope is also indicated in the title and the type of information given is limited. Some of the broad categories of directories are as follows. First one, local directories. These include telephone directories, city directories, and such others as directories of local schools, clubs, theatres, etc. Second one, government directories. These include guides of post offices, army and navy posts, and many more in this category. The third is institutional directories. These include lists of schools, colleges, libraries, hospitals, museums, and similar other organizations. The fourth is professional directories. These are mainly lists of manufacturer information about companies, industries, and personal services. Abstracts and indexes. An abstract is a brief summary of a research article, thesis, review, conference proceeding, or any in-depth analysis of a particular subject or discipline, and is often used to help the reader quickly ascertain the paper's purpose. When used, an abstract always appears at the beginning of a manuscript or typescript, acting as the point of entry for any given academic paper or patent application. An index is a list of words or phrases and associated pointers to where useful material relating to that heading can be found in a document or on a page. In a traditional back of the book index, the headings will include names of people, places and events and concepts selected by a person as being relevant and of interest to a possible reader of the book. The pointers are typically page numbers, paragraph numbers or section numbers. In a library catalog, the words are authors, titles, subject headings, etc. and the pointers are called numbers. An abstracting service is a service that provides abstracts of publications, often on a subject or group of related subjects, usually on a subscription basis. An indexing service is a service that assigns descriptors and other kinds of access points to documents. The word indexing service is most commonly used for computer programs, but may also cover services providing back of the book indexes, general indexes, and related kinds of indexes. Indexing and abstracting service provides shortening or summarizing of documents and assigning of descriptors for referencing documents. The product is often an abstracts journal or a bibliographic index, which may be a subject bibliography or a bibliographic database. A bibliographic index is a bibliography, an aid to search the literature of an academic field or discipline, example philosopher's index, to works of a specific literary form, as for example biography index, or published in a specific format, as for example newspaper abstracts, or to the analyzed contents of a serial publication, example New York Times index. Indexes of this kind are issued in print periodical form, online or both. Since the 1970s, they are typically generated as output from bibliographic databases. Citations are usually listed by author and subject in separate sections or in a single alphabetical sequence under a system of authorized headings, collectively known as controlled vocabulary, developed over time by the indexing service. Bibliographic databases. A bibliographic database is a database of bibliographic records, an organized digital collection of references to published literature, including journal and newspaper articles, conference proceedings, reports, government and legal publications, patents, books, etc. In contrast to library catalog entries, a large proportion of the bibliographic records in bibliographic databases describe articles, conference papers, etc. rather than complete monographs, and they generally contain very rich subject descriptions in the form of keywords, subject classification terms or abstracts. A bibliographic database may be general in scope or cover a specific academic discipline. A significant number of bibliographic databases are still proprietary, available by licensing agreement from vendors or directly from the indexing and abstracting services that create them. Bibliography of bibliographies. A bibliography is a full reference list of all the sources which you have consulted in preparing a particular piece of work, but may not have cited for quotations, paraphrasing, etc. Multiplication of bibliographies of different types has led to the compilation of bibliography of bibliographies. These bibliographies direct the readers to useful bibliographies through subject, place, individual, etc. As the number of bibliographies published every year is large, bibliography of bibliographies are highly selective in nature. Bibliography of bibliographies help to list together all the related but separately published bibliographies either in book form or article form, or a chapter in a book or some other type of document. There are retrospective bibliography of bibliographies and current bibliography of bibliographies. Some examples of bibliography of bibliographies are: first one, a bibliography of bibliographies in religion by John G. Barrow. This compilation is an attempt to bring together all separately published bibliographies in the field of religion. Symbols indicate where copies of the bibliographies were seen and where other copies have been reported. One of the original purposes of this work was to encourage the production of bibliographies for subjects inadequately covered. Second one, a world bibliography of bibliographies and of bibliographical catalogues, calendars, abstracts, digests, indexes and the like by Theodore Betterman. Yearbooks and almanacs. A yearbook refers to a book of statistics or facts published annually. The term yearbook is used by publishers for a variety of reference sources published annually and even for those reference works which are not published annually. The term yearbook is used to cover two types of annual publication. First one, digest of current information, which is called as almanacs. Secondly, annual review of world history, which are called as yearbooks. An almanac is an annual publication that include information such as weather forecasts, farmers' planting dates, tide tables and tabular information often arranged according to the calendar. Astronomical data and various statistics are found in almanacs such as the times of the rising and setting of the sun and the moon, eclipses, hours of full tide, church festivals and so on. Currently published almanacs such as Whitaker's Almanac have expanded their scope and contents beyond that of their historical counterparts. Modern almanacs include a comprehensive presentation of statistical and descriptive data covering the entire world. Contents also include discussions of topical developments and a summary of recent historical events. Guides. A guide to information sources or a bibliographic guide, a literature guide, a guide to reference materials or a subject gateway, etc. is a kind of meta-bibliography. Ideally, it is not just a listing of bibliographies, reference works and other information sources, but more like textbooks introducing users to the information sources in a given field. Various types of guides are available, of which the most important variety is the guide to literature of a subject. Some of the well-defined and broad subjects like chemistry, mathematics, physics, medicine, etc. have all well-prepared guides. The purpose of such a guide is to present the bibliographical structure of a subject. Usually, it provides a detailed account of the bibliographical apparatus and tools, basic literature, agencies, etc., through which it is possible to follow the development, status and progress of a subject. It gives the broad bibliographical view of a subject. List of research in progress. A list or directory of research in progress is a new type of publication which is needed very much for planning of research, avoidance of duplication and above all in the anticipation of information. Such a list may cover the research activities of a single institution or laboratory, a group of institutions, example universities, or research in progress within a specified subject. The information content usually is a short description of projects, names of investigators, periods of investigation, name of funding agency, and in some cases reference of sources where preliminary results have already been published or likely source of publication of result. This information can help individual worker to get in touch with the investigator, can get additional information about the work, or can anticipate as to when and where to get the full report or results of investigation. Information can come from virtually anywhere. The type of information needed will change depending on its application. The sources by which users get required information are an information source. Mainly, the information sources are classified to primary, secondary, and tertiary sources. A tertiary source is an index or textual consolidation of primary and secondary sources. Some tertiary sources are not to be used for academic research unless they can also be used as secondary sources or to other sources. Indexes, bibliographies and databases may not provide much textual information, but as aggregates of primary and secondary sources, they are often considered tertiary sources. Let us now move on to summarize the session. Here, an attempt has been made to discuss the tertiary sources of information. An information source is a source of information for somebody. Tertiary sources consist of information which is a distillation and collection of primary and secondary sources of information. Depending on the topic of research, a scholar may use a bibliography, dictionary, or encyclopedia as either a tertiary or a secondary source. Some, usually primary sources, such as user guides and manuals, are secondary or tertiary when written by the third parties. Now, try to answer the questions. First question: what is a tertiary source of information? Second one: what is an abstract? What is an index? Fourth: what is a bibliographic database? Fifth: what is a directory? Sixth: list any 5 tertiary sources of information. Hope you may go through these reference books for further reading. Information Sources and Services by P.S.G. Kumar, B.R. Publishing Corporation, 2004. Reference Service and Sources of Information by J.S. Sharma and D.R. Grover, S.S. Publications, New Delhi, 1987. Reference Services and Sources by C.K. Sharma, Atlantic Publishers, New Delhi, 2006. Hope this session was enriching. Meet you again with another topic. Goodbye.